Hey, Teddy K here for Best Buy Plugin, and in this video review we take a look at the Parrot Disco. This is the latest drone. It's a fixed wing drone, as you can see, so it's not a quadcopter, and we're going to take it to the sky and see how it flies. Despite its size, the Disco is pretty light at 1.6 pounds, and it takes less than 3 minutes to assemble because most of the pieces are already put together anyway. So you just clip on the wings here. There's a little bit of a motor in the back there that you got to clip it onto. Very easy to do though, and yeah, there's a very slight groove there in between them. So it's just putting on the two wings, put on the other one here. They slide right in, and they're surprisingly robust. They're all made of foam, so there's carbon tubes that reinforce the foam, making it very lightweight, but also very aerodynamic at the same time. We'll get to that. This is the only propeller, so there's one propeller in the rear that gives the drone the lift, and then you have the 14 megapixel image sensor inside. This is the same camera that is in the Bebop 2. A 2700 milliamp battery is what powers the drone, and Parrot rates the battery life at about 45 minutes. I was able to get 47 in a series of flights, about 5 flights altogether, takeoffs and landings. So battery life is excellent. It is considerably better than any quadcopter that I've flown so far to date. And just had a little bit of trouble here putting in the battery, but really it's just a case of just putting the battery into the compartment first, then plugging it in, and then we're good to go. Put the cap on top. We'll press the power button there that's in the front. It looks like a USB stick sticking out. Press that, and that's it. Now the drone's ready to fly. We calibrate, so I have to calibrate here by sort of spinning it in any which direction. The app indicates how to do this. So this is the last stage before we're ready to take off. So once paired with the controller, press the takeoff button, throw it like a frisbee, and off it goes. Simple as that. The Disco climbs to a default altitude of 164 feet and then goes into a circling pattern that's called loiter mode. It stays there and keeps doing that until manually overridden with manual controls from the Sky Controller 2, which by the way is a fraction of the size of the original. The left joystick controls thrust and brakes. The right side controls all the direction climbing, diving, and turning right or left. And here's a quick peek of what the Disco looks like from the ground. Line of sight is very important in flying this drone. You need to have a pretty good idea where it is at all times because it's always moving forward. It doesn't hover or pan sideways or go backwards like a quadcopter does. This is video from the camera, and the 32 gigs of internal storage is great for photos and video, and you can always transfer them to using the phone. The winglets on the Disco and the rear propeller, everything about the design makes it a pretty smooth ride. So if you're just coasting like I am here, then video quality, it looks really nice. It just, there's something about it that is different than a quadcopter. Don't get me wrong, you could get the same quality images with the Bebop 2 because it's the same camera, but there was something cinematic about the way the Disco was able to do this, and it's because of the way it flies. It flies a lot like a plane, so the way it turns, the way it curves is very different. And that is the Parrot Disco. Now, it's very cool. There's no question about that. Fixed-wing drones are not common, so when you have something like this that flies very differently, you're going to pay attention to it. But you might be asking yourself, well, who is this for? And that's a good question because it's not for everybody. Now, if you're an enthusiast, you're a hobbyist, or you just like flying stuff, this thing might be up your alley. If you're not that into drones, though, I would suggest a quadcopter. Start there. Don't start with this. Okay, you're going to crash this, and you're going to make a mess of it. I'm almost sure of that because now I crashed it, and I think honestly even an expert would crash this thing. It's a different kind of flying than a quadcopter is, which you'll probably crash too. Now that being said, there's also the caveats you got to consider too, right? I mean, you need an open space. You can't just fly this anywhere. You certainly can't fly it near buildings. I wouldn't even attempt anything like that. And you don't want to be brazen and fly near cars or people or anything like that. You don't want to do any of that either. So you want to avoid any obstacles that would get in the way or cause any problems as far as flying this thing goes. So you got that, right? And then on top of all that is where you land it. So we're here in a park with grassland, which is perfect for the Disco. It's actually the ideal surface that it should land on. However, if you are flying it somewhere else, like you can't fly this in sand. You can't land it in sand, I should say. You can't land it in snow. Certainly can't land it in water. It's got no waterproof, water resistance. So you're limited as to where you're flying it because you need a wide open space, and then you ideally need grass. You need something very soft for it to land on. If it can land on concrete or asphalt, but what happens to the hull underneath is a question. I mean, at that, I don't know what kind of damage. Now, we landed it, like we crashed it into branches, and here's the kind of here's the damage that it suffered. Now it's pretty superficial, it's not serious, but if that were to happen repeatedly, or if it were to make the friction with concrete or asphalt, which is far worse, I would argue, than branches could be, you could damage the hull underneath, and then you'd have to replace it, and replacement parts can be expensive. All the parts of the Disco are replaceable, by the way. So Parrot does offer a way to replace just about any component in the drone. That's very cool, but it can be pricey. So if you are looking to fly this thing and be a little bit brazen about it, be prepared to pay for that. And I'll say it right out. I mean, flying in FPV mode, very cool. It's like sitting in the cockpit of a plane. You see everything the drone sees live, real time. It's amazing. So that side of it is cool too. Now you can fly that way with the Bebop too, by the way. It's not just the feature for the Disco, because of the same Sky Controller 2 and the cockpit glasses FPV headset work with that drone also. So you can go either way, basically. So if I were to summarize, I would say that this is a great drone for you if you are into drones. If drones are a thing, you're a hobbyist, you consider yourself someone who knows what they're doing, or really wants to know what they're doing, and you have some experience from before, you're probably good with this. It's worth taking a plunge, at least if you have the money and if you want to do it. If you don't, I think you can take a pass on this one. And it'll be interesting to see what Parrot does as an encore for this. But for now, this is one of the most interesting drones that I've flown to date, and hopefully they make it better with firmware updates. So that's it. For Best Buy Plugin, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.